4:03 p.m. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Reasonable efforts have been made to assist and accommodate physically handicapped persons. Anyone desiring assistance, accommodations, or additional information is invited to call the number 775-738-5196. Supporting materials are available through Hillary Baker at the central office or on our district website. 1.01, order and approval of the agenda. Item 1.01 is the order and approval of the agenda. I reserve the right to change the order of the agenda, combine items, or remove items at any time. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 1.01, input from the public. Item 1.02 is for public comment. This period is devoted to comments for the general public. In the interest of privacy, please do not raise personnel issues. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. No action may be taken on matters raised until they are specifically placed on a future agenda. Seeing no public comment at this time, we will move to Section 2. Section 2.01, approval of the committee minutes.
Move to approve. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Item 2.01 is the approval of the committee minutes from our previous meeting. Members, you have received the draft minutes in your packet. It's more online. Are there any corrections or additions?
So there is a minor thing that Hillary will be able to answer for us at the very beginning of the minutes, Hillary. It indicates that a meeting of the Board of Trustees was held. Since the board called this, or at least appointed this, is it a committee of the board, or do we classify that as a Board of the Trustees?
No, I'll correct that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, move to approve the minutes with that notation.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 2.02, receipt, review, and discussion regarding district report card data. So item 2.02 is the receipt, review, and discussion regarding district report card data. This is a non-action item. So this is kind of our meat of the meeting today, and that's just to give us some time to explore the state Nevada report card. And I think some of you probably have had an opportunity to look through this website, but some have not. So I wanted to take this opportunity because it is open to the public and anybody can view this data at any time. Right now, we only have the data from the 24-25 school year, so we will be getting into this school year's attendance, but not today. I want to look back at our trends and make sure everybody can see all of the schools at a glance. So I'm just going to take us through, and you'll see up on the screen that you get this kind of very broad overview. This is the entire state and every school, all 764 schools in the state of Nevada. And then we can go into more specific data by clicking up above to the districts and schools. And then we can go to the 24-25 school year. Click OK. Go into Elko. But all of the districts are in there at that point, and then all of Elko's schools are here. And so this is where we can explore more specific schools, and you can see, of course, the middle schools all We can compare and all of the elementary schools and secondary and combined. And it also includes your early childhood programs and Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy as well. So I am going to pick on Elko High School because Elko High School is represented here today with,
Emily, our parent representative has joined the meeting via Zoom.
oh yay, hello Arhelia.
Hi, how are you guys?
Glad you could make it.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Wonderful. So Arhelia, I'm just taking everybody through our district website. Did you get that kind of introduction to that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, awesome. Just chime in if anybody has questions or comments as we go through.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick on Elko High School because Ms. Pongerkin is here to represent, and also it is the largest school in our district. And I love how it does that, where it just calculates everything really fast in front of us. And so now we get just a snapshot of what's going on. And of course, we're here to look at chronic absenteeism. So we're just going to click on that. And then you can see right away where Elko High School is compared to the rest of the county and the rest of the state. And oftentimes, Elko High School, because it is the largest, is going to set the standard for the entire district. So you will often see that 32.9 and 32.6 are so close because Elko High School is the largest school. And so it often, if we look at what is going on at Elko High School, we see what's going on at the rest of the county. So, which isn't exactly fair. It's just that it's so big that it skews the data there. I think there's a lot of value in looking at all of the different schools and not just Elko High School, but it does show us quite a bit. So then just wanted to show you a couple of the other things that you can look at here. You can look at the average daily attendance, average class sizes, student-teacher ratios, transiency, retention by grade, credit deficiency, and EL students. So going back up here to the chronic absenteeism, I'm going to go to a more detailed report. Go ahead, Katie.
Actually, I did have a question about this. I've looked at the Elko High School data quite thoroughly, and I do have a wonder because when we drill down into our actual school report, which is where we get our star rating, which is kind of what happens when you click down a little bit further here.
Here, do you want me to go there so we can all see it?
So on that side, it says we have a 32.9% chronic absenteeism rate. But if you go here on the snapshot page, this is measured in our school engagement indicator as where we're actually kind of scored on it, and it gets to our star rating. This says our chronic absenteeism rate as a school rate is actually 22.9. So that's a wonder that I've had of kind of where those two, I mean, it's a 10% discrepancy. We've been going off as a school to 22.9, which is a huge improvement year from the previous year. And then right now we're actually trending for the first semester. We were at a 10.2% is where we were at for first semester. So if that maintains that trend, we're probably going to hit about a 19 to 20%. Again, a huge improvement in meeting our goals. But I'm wondering if we know where that discrepancy comes from.
I don't know all of the ins and outs of the report, and we've all had, Trustee McCarty, we've had training on the Nevada report card, and I always have, as you put it, Katie, like wonderings Because it seems like I know there's a rhyme to the reason, but I can't say that I have all the answers with that. What I would like to look at is just how it trends. So when you go back to previous years, does this number always stay within that 10 point? Have you looked at that?
We did look year over year based on the school report, and it was in previous years, and I may get this not exactly to the 10th of a percentage, but it was around
If I
that
may
36.
interject, if you click on the student engagement indicator, then it'll open up last year as well as the year prior.
There we go.
Oh,
That's
thank
where I
you.
got that data. Thank you. I'm like, I knew I got it from somewhere. And so if we look here and we drill down a little bit here, the 2024 school was 25.9. So we saw a 3-ish% improvement almost to the dot in the 2025% year of 22.9. And then so we're actually trending in a really positive direction with some of the things we've put together. I still don't accept 22.9. We definitely have to continue that improvement trend. But when we look at the big screen, and my wonder is, it could be, is some of our like alternative ed programs being counted into one scenario, but not on our school reports. And so I'm kind of drilling down because I want us to have a really good, accurate data. And there's a big difference between 36% of our kids being chronically absent and 22%. And I think if that trends on all of our schools, then I'd like to see kind of where that data actually is.
And it's interesting because even the report card recognizes the improvement with Elko High School with the double asterisks and says, yep, we know that they've done good. So yeah, something's off on the data. But as you both have mentioned, we've had multiple concerns with the data in the past.
Yeah. And then you can see too, I'm just looking right here on the screen where it says like where you can get bonus points earned. And so also just how much you're reducing at some point. So if you haven't made huge gains, then you might not get those bonus points. So that all might factor into that as well. So I guess as a group, we probably want to agree upon what data we're looking at when we're looking at the Nevada report card.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think for us as a school, we look at the school report data because that's where we're looking at this data to be able to drive our goals. As a school, we have chronic absenteeism goals on our school improvement plans. And I know we've used this particular sheet because this is what our administration uses as well.
Dumb question. Can Mr. Farmer run a report for absenteeism? And does that match any of this data?
Not a dumb question at all. Yes, in fact, he's already run reports for me, but it was for this year, which I wanted to get to in our future meetings once we kind of have this larger perspective of how we're trending to go. But I can absolutely get him to run those reports for us, and we can compare those. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of what is the most, like at some point we're just going to have to pick this and say, okay, we're going to look at, let's see, I'm going to go back to this overview and we just decide, are we going to look at this here on this page? Are we going to go back to looking at Elko High School at a glance with the 32? And yeah. What are your thoughts, everybody?
And so just to let you know, Mr. Farmer's Josh Farmer, who, okay, good.
Familiar
Great,
with
you know,
who he is. Yep,
perfect,
thank you,
good.
though, yes.
So the year 23-24 within Elko High School, so dialing into Elko High School and then changing the year up in the upper right-hand corner to the 23-24 doesn't give us any data for the school itself.
It also shows it's a middle school and
So I would, oh, and maybe that's part of my problem.
but that's
You know what, if we click high school in the middle, sorry, that was dumb. So up above the star rating, if we click high, then it gives us that. So thank you for pointing that out. I didn't realize that one, yeah, I don't like the site, don't like the data, but as to Emily's question of what are we going to use, I would say what is closest to what you as the high school feel is accurate.
We ran, so all of our data, for those who are wondering, so every single day attendance data is captured through Infinite Campus, which is our district-wide reporting system. And then that's used to actually report to the state and federal for attendance. And so this, I believe, is closest to the numbers that we ran through IC. So I think it would more match, and that's where Josh is pulling that data from as well. So my recommendation is we use the school reports because every school will have them, and then that will give us also, I think, a consistency across the board that most schools will use and most principals use for their school improvement plans and whatnot.
I think it's a logical argument, and I agree. Additionally, if the school numbers are this different, I don't see how it's possible that the district numbers can be accurate. If Elko High School is 22.9% and the district is showing a 34.8, every other school in the district would have to be 40% in order to average this out. So I would say, yeah, let's use just the dialed in school numbers.
I like that as well. I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think it'll help us too, because I know I spent some time in the evening looking through different schools as well, just trying to familiarize myself with the rest of the district. And there are schools, especially some of our rural communities, that are showing and I didn't look at their school reports, I looked at what the website was doing, but higher than 40 to 45%. So again, thinking district-wide, I want to make sure we're using consistent data and that it is a true picture of what's happening, because some of our decisions, there's a big decision between 40% or almost half of our student population being chronically absent than 22%. Still a huge concern, still something we need to have action steps on, but it may change some of the conversation of what groups are we targeting and stuff too.
So that's a great segue into what I was going to ask. So now that, we have this data at our fingertips, and I encourage all of us to go through and there's also a compare feature that you can look at multiple schools, and that's helpful. But what are the questions we want to ask? Because we've got all of this data, but it's our job to do something with it. And so I think as we work toward that end, what are some questions that we need either answers to, or at least we need to consider?
So I think we need to, as we're looking at data, how far back do we want to go? When did we not have a chronic absenteeism problem? Do we know that anecdotally?
Yes. Well,
I shouldn't say anecdotally. Do we know that?
I think that pre-COVID, we thought we had a chronic absentee issue at 14%, and that was awful. And now it's just astronomically high. So it's become kind of our new normal, I guess, is post 2020.
Then it might be beneficial then to have that trend line plotted out. Looking at the 17-18 year, looks like it was a 12 point something. I don't know why I just changed it because it was already on there for the year, but 12.1 for chronic absenteeism. And then the next year, 18-19, pre-COVID, was 19.2. So even in that year, we saw, what would that be, a 50% jump up? And that may be the beginning of, okay, what happened? Did we start changing how we were counting? Did we, I mean, because I highly doubt that all of a sudden the entire school said, hey guys, let's all skip for an extra 3 days this year. I mean,
Well, and we have to keep in mind too, that 2019 was really, and I guess I was not in Elko County at the time, so, but 2019, that spring break-ish time is when COVID really started hitting. So is that actually what we're seeing when COVID started hitting at the end of 2019, knowing that the entire 19-20 school year in 2021 was really our online years and those COVID years? But I think it really started March 2019 is when they started shutting schools down and kids started not coming to school.
I think it was 2020, because it was in December of 19
Was it?
that it started first coming out.
Okay, I was thinking it was 19.
It was the 1920 school
school
year,
year. Maybe
but
that's why I
March
always
of the
do-
19.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
1920, yeah, so March of 2020 then. So the 18-19 school year should be whole.
Should,
Normal.
yeah, it should.
So that's a good question.
No, I do have something to add, just by hearing everything. And as a parent, I think that it is good to know, like, when we're comparing, like, how far back are we comparing, why they've been missing, what's been the cause. Because there has been a lot going on since COVID. So I think that's a really good one.
Thank you, Arhelia. I appreciate that. And I've also just taken us to this next section of the report card. So you can get here. Let's see if I can replicate it again. Let me just go back. It's not letting me move around. Okay, so this is when you go into the demographic profile, and I can pick a year, and I can pick let's see, 2 years there, and then I can go to Elko's already selected, and I'm going to compare it to the state. And then, let's see, did it give me both years? Yeah, it did. So I can also break it down by demographics. And so we can see if there are any populations that are trending with a decline. And you can see that it brings in, you know, male, female, our ELL, our free and reduced lunch, homeless, foster. You know, we get a lot of data, and then it continues to break it down by grade. And I think this is a really important one to look at, because I think sometimes we make an assumption that maybe it's the high school that has the highest absenteeism rate. And you'll see through a lot of this data that our chronic absenteeism happens at a very young age.
Yes, which I think historically that is the case. A lot of times because the accountability sometimes is different at high school because of credit factors. We track it and talk about it differently, but You know, if we look at research and like Attendance Works is a big research company out there that does a lot with attendance across the nation. And yes, that chronic absenteeism often starts in our kindergarten years. And if we did some like longitudinal studies of those kids, it often is the same cohort or groups of kids that are continuing. So looking at how do we prevent that from happening, but then also how do we address those kids? But those are good questions to ask. Also, to your question of like what to ask, I just led a 4-hour data dive yesterday.
Oh,
And
yay.
you know, some of the questions that when we're looking at data, I think is always good. You know, what hunches do we have, or what do we think is causing what we're observing? And then why are we getting the results we are? Like doing some of those root cause analysis to try to figure that out, and then going to our community and our stakeholders and our teachers and asking them, hey, what do we think we're seeing here? Because our data is telling us a lot, and we need to kind of get to that root cause piece of what's going on so we can start to potentially get some ideas for how to address it as well. But those are big questions I would like to hear, and also from multiple stakeholders as well. As there's one thing as a teacher, what I think is happening and what I'm seeing, I think from my parent lens and our parents here are from the juvenile lens, like we all have different avenues, and I would love to see what our stakeholders see as happening as data.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to kind of open it up so I don't do all the talking. And I know that you all are kind of exploring still through the website. So I'm just going to kind of let us sit with looking through, and then just feel free to chime in if you see something interesting, or you would like to come back to that idea of next steps and things that we, you know, the direction of where we might want to go.
Can you walk me through again how you got to that screen? Yeah, because I keep clicking on things and it's not getting where I want it to be.
Do you see, okay, here we are at the Port Elko High School that's getting picked on. And although they are doing great, so they're good. We're trending in the right direction. And then I'm just going to go all the way down. And I'm going to say, right here, do you see this? Click here to view a more detailed report and compare data. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. And then that's where I can pick my years. And I chose just, here I'm going to choose the 24-25 and 2018-2019. Then I'm going to click on Elko, and I'm going to move it over so that I'm going to be comparing the state and Elko. If I wanted to bring in another district to compare, I could do that here too. And then I'm just going to click Get Report. So you can see that it has the state year, the 2018 and 2024, and then it has the Elko. We see how many people were enrolled. You also see that we had a much larger enrollment in 2018, 2019, so that could also impact and would impact, because now the students who are absent, they're making a greater impact to our percentage.
That is what I was going to say, because I was looking at that. And back in 2018, 2019, there was way many more kids than there is now enrolled. So that can be one of the reasons why the numbers look so drastic or so different.
Yeah, absolutely. And then do I need to go back? Did you not?
So the group summary report, I'm on chronic absenteeism, and I'm not seeing a group summary report from the drop down. Is it the demographic profile? Is that what?
You mean?
So
Let me see.
On the one that you had with all of the selection, here at the top, under the data interaction, it says group summary report. Mine says demographic profile. I've got chronic absenteeism. I don't see a selection that allows me to say group summary report. So somehow you got there and I must have clicked differently.
Go back.
So I'm going to close this back
Oh,
out.
okay. I see what you did. You click on the middle.
You don't have that one. You have to go all the way up. So I went to this. Back out. Yes, now go all the way to the bottom. For whatever reason it likes. There you go. I have the chronic absenteeism selected too, and that's what it gets right.
Yes, now it's showing demographic profile.
Don't see really.
Let's do this.
It is interesting to me that it looks just at a glance, like the higher you go in the grades, either it stayed consistent or it actually increased after COVID, right? Like, so that's kind of like, again, noticing that from my perspective, it's surprising to me that at such a young age, we have that big of an issue, because at face value, that tells me it's a parent being family potential issue versus a individual child who's just simply, right, like, I don't want to go to school anymore when they're in those younger grades. That's interesting. Like second grade almost dropped a percentage from prior to COVID to after. Same way with first. And even kindergarten was almost 1.5 points or 1.5 percentage.
I thought going through some of this data might be surprising.
Yeah.
You know, it does have that impact on me too. And I think it's good to take the time to just kind of explore it, because then we can kind of put aside maybe what some of our assumptions were, and that will help us also get to where we think a root cause, you know, where our root cause is, and then what avenues we might have to help that.
Show me where you were saying it's dropping. You're just looking at.
I'm just looking at Elko from the 2018, but like kindergarten was it at 2018, 8.2, and then it dropped to 6.6. And these are enrollment numbers, if I'm reading it correct, right? So that's what was interesting to me. Like it's not linked to absenteeism, it's just enrollment, but enrollment is really low. Not really low, just dropped.
Okay, I'm seeing 8.2 to, and which years are you comparing?
2018 to 2019 to the 25 to 26 is,
Gotcha.
I guess, what it defaulted to.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm being lazy and I want to see all the data. I know that it can be overwhelming, but I want to see multiple years. So that's why I was like, wait a minute. And then I was looking at states, and I'm following you. Yeah, so it's that. And yeah, a kindergartner doesn't decide, I'm not going to enroll in school.
Yep.
So
Yep.
did
our population drop that significantly from
I wouldn't think
18
so.
to 25?
So our population has trended down for the last 3 years.
Okay.
And before that, I think it was I just don't want to say it and be just wrong, but we did have a peak year, and it was after Liberty Peak was built and it opened. And then we had more peak years, and then last 3 years have been where we see the steepest decline.
And that's population of Elko County or population of students?
Students.
Okay.
Do we have any population of Elko County data? Because the state demographer puts out these projections, but the county, that I'm aware of, every Elko County elected official and city manager, county manager, et cetera, has always disputed those numbers. But
Well, and I think we could look at that, but I feel like our community has stayed relatively similar in the last 3 years. Bless you. And so I think what's increased is the number of students who have gone to homeschooling. And I think that is probably where our enrollment numbers have gone down. However, we have also seen just lower birth rates, things like that across the nation. And so we were always going to see a decline in population from that. We knew that was coming before COVID. What we didn't expect was the steep decline in the last 3 years to homeschool.
And so we should be able to look at this. And in 1819, we had 841 kindergartners, correct? 1920, they should have progressed to first grade. So we should be able to compare next column, next row to that same number. So that was the exact same, 841. 2021, we dropped 70-ish. 21, 22, we came up another 30 to 804, held pretty steady in 22, 23. By the time we got to 23, 24, we were at 798 students. So again, fairly consistent. But then 24, 25, we lost another 40-ish students by the time we got to grade 6. So we are seeing these bouncing. And so when you're comparing year to year, it may be good to not necessarily compare straight down the column, because birth rates, younger families, older families, et cetera, might work, but might impact things. But is that a better way of looking diagonally?
Yeah, usually when we're looking at enrollment numbers, we want to track that same cohort, because we also know that there's bubble years, there's years that families have more kids, and so you might have different grade levels that are at different levels. So yes, tracking the trend across and following that cohort across, and then knowing too, as people come in and leave the community, because we're, with a mining community, we're a little more transient in that sense. But that's actually a pretty solid trend line as far as enrollment goes for, if we're tracking what our current, it would be our current 7th graders then. So really there hasn't been, I would say, a statistical significance in that particular cohort. One thing I thought, my assumption going into looking at the data too, was that we would see similarities between our schools, like for instance, comparing like Spring Creek High School to Elko High School. I've never looked at Spring Creek's data. According to the larger number on the big website, which we said we're not going to necessarily use, they're at a 44% chronic absenteeism rate for last school year. On their report card, it was at a 36.3. So again, we're seeing about an average of a 8 to 10% discrepancy between those two numbers. But between a 36.3 and a 22.9, there's some difference there for two schools that are really only 5-ish miles apart. So that's a wonder that I have too, is where are we seeing, and shout out to Elko High School. Sorry, it's my school. But that's a big difference between schools that are pretty similar in population and location. So that's a wonder I have, and a question of why are we seeing that discrepancy? I expect to see discrepancies in our outlying rural schools because they serve a very different population in different places, and they have some different challenges. But these two are interesting to me, and I would love to drill down a little bit more on that. It's a question I would love to talk to stakeholders about.
And I'd like to see the socioeconomic data for that. When I was at the college in the foundation side of things, when we started looking at that side of things, that the rule of thumb was it's a higher percentage, a higher per capita out in Spring Creek for total income, and additionally, a much higher single parent percentage when we were out there, because we were looking at how do we get single moms or single parents engaged when the kids are in school. And so that was the thought process, but I never actually had real data that backed that up. It was just kind of this, well, that's what we're assuming. And so I'm wondering if we're seeing that chronic absenteeism in Spring Creek, if that information is true, that there are more stay-at-home parents and they're at the higher income levels, there may be that attitude of, yeah, you don't have to go to school today, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because a 13-point change is huge for the same grade level and generally for the same geographic location. So yeah, that is interesting. It'll be interesting to see the breakdown also of the demographics by race and see if that changes things between those two high schools. So that may be a good study of where we at, because each other community is going to be, they're going to have their own geographic and their own microcosm cultural issues that control their absenteeism. But theoretically, it should be pretty consistent between Elko and Spring Creek.
Arhelia, any thoughts on that? If you're still with us.
Yes, I'm still here. Same thing. I'm just looking because yeah, that is a really good point where the comparison started diagonally instead of across the board. Because I work for WIC, so it's kind of similar. There's not a lot of babies being born some years, and then there's years that you have a lot of parents having family, like larger families. So that is a big one. But I still think I don't know, the numbers just seem off because it's like it's like a drastic amount. It's not just like one or two, it's like more, So like why are they being absent? Why are they not coming? What's the issue? What's the cause? What's going on? And yeah, I do wanna say that the homeschooling has a lot to do with it because I have been like talking to parents here and there. I do hear like, oh yeah, like my kid is now homeschooled. So that does have a lot to do with it. But like, what's the cause of it? Why is it happening? So that's what I'm gonna look at it more today. Because I did get them, but I've been sick. So I haven't had like a lot to look at. But I'm gonna pay more attention to this because it is off. Like the numbers are just like, why? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it's in the long run, it is a lot for children to be. And like you guys say, it's not with the older kids, and I'll say it by experience. Like my 6-year-old, she doesn't have a choice to be absent. You go or you go. And with like you'd see that more with the older ones, but you see it in the younger generation. So what's going on? Why are they not going to school? Why are they not attending to school? Like what is the reason behind all of that?
Yeah, thanks for that input. And I also think maybe we're kind of naturally connecting this like absenteeism with then a trending to a lower enrollment. And I don't know, is that a connection we want to make? And maybe we should be cautious with that connection. Just thoughts on that.
Emily, I think the same thing. I think, because when we're talking about our chronic absenteeism, these are kids currently enrolled in school. So I think if we're talking about our numbers of enrollment, if they are declining, which we know they are, we could say that there's a direct correlation with going on homeschool to our enrollment numbers. But our chronic absenteeism and our daily attendance rate is based on enrolled students, not population in the community. So really, we can't draw any correlations. Now, I think where we can say is what we've seen at Elko High School, and this is not true across the board, but there are some instances where a family has been, they've gotten the letters for chronic absenteeism. Your kid's at 5 days, your kid's at 10 days, you've hit 15 days. You are now considered a chronically absent student. And some of the results of that are then a parent will say, hey, we're going to go online. We can't figure out how to get our kid there. And so then I think they make that decision. But I would have to get the numbers, and we've been asking how to get those numbers because it's not something we necessarily track with data. I think that would be a question. Is it a response to chronic absenteeism that we've called this out, we've gone through the process of what the NRS tells us to do, and then the result is parents pull their kid. But I don't think we have to still separate the data out, if that makes sense.
I think there may be a correlation, though, between enrollment and absenteeism in that from an actuarial standpoint with insurance, when you change a pool of people, then, at least from an insurance standpoint, if you take healthy people out, then of course your unhealthy goes up. So if the people withdrawing that aren't withdrawing because of a notice of a chronic absenteeism, for example, those that are withdrawing to the charter school, no offense to our charter school partners, but generally those parents are more engaged. Because they're more engaged, they're more likely to be involved in homework, more likely to make sure the kids are going to school. So there is this factual data point that they have a smaller pool of people with a higher engagement. So of course their star ratings would be higher using that data because we're not comparing apples to oranges or apples to apples. And if you pull all of your straight A students out of a class and the GPA goes down, well, of course the GPA is going to go down. That's what's going to happen. And so I think that if the parents are pulling children to homeschool, not because of a threat of punishment from the state passed through the high school, but because they want to be more engaged in their children's education, then those may have been people that were basically buoying our enrollment because they were sending their kids to school because school is important. Does that make sense? I don't feel like I'm explaining it right, but I hope that helps.
It makes perfect sense. And my wonder is, and I don't know what data we've started to gather, I know we've asked this question at the high school to try to figure out, even trying to reach out to our families who have decided to go homeschool or to, well, there's not a charter school for high school, but to the homeschool route of what is the deciding factor there and trying to kind of get some of that data down. So my wonder would be, do we have a way to see that district-wide to start getting some of that data to start seeing where it's going?
I also do have a question. Just because I have noticed this with one of my older daughters. So one of the times that she was sick, she missed. I don't know if it just has to do like with, she's in middle school, she's in Adobe right now. I don't know if it just has to do with like the middle school or if the high school is the same because there's different classes. But one time that she missed, she called me. She's like, Mom, I'm feeling sick. Can you come get me? I went to go get her. Um, and that one day, it seemed like she missed like she had 5 absences. Does that have like something to do with it too? Because if it does, then that's where like the numbers for the high school and the middle school's going. Because I was like, you don't have that many absences. And she's like, no, I know I don't. I was like, well, I better not find out you're missing or you're skipping school. And she's like, no, I'm not, Mom. She's like, you pulled me that day and we can go check. So I was like, okay. So, I mean, going through this and hearing everything and looking at the reports, does that have something to do with this? Because I mean, that could, I don't know, it could probably interfere as well.
I think you bring up such a good point, and it doesn't. So you can look at absences and they can do daily absences, which is the thing that goes toward chronic absenteeism. And then you can also see period absences. So you were seeing those period absences that all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, 5, but it was only one day. So, but I think you also bring up this really good point that very engaged parents have a very difficult time understanding what this all means. And, that it's really helpful, even just like how we will code our absences and how with one code, we are no longer, that child does not count toward chronic absenteeism. So if they have a doctor's note, does not count. If they get excused by a parent, it does count. So
Okay, I get it.
and isn't that a little bit, I don't know if parents really understand that. And of course, we want parents to keep their kids home when they're sick, and sometimes they're not going to make it to the doctor, and that's okay. But even an excused absence is not that it will also count toward chronic absenteeism. And the reason for that is because that child is still removed from instruction, and that's really what they want to get at with this. When they are excused, though, we do want to encourage parents to excuse those absences because that way they can easily make up the work. And unexcused absences, teachers may not allow them to make up tests and things that are unexcused. So I don't know, were you aware of that, Arhelia? And what are your thoughts on how well, or if the district needs to do a little bit more work in explaining these kinds of things?
To be honest with you, I think that has to be more explained because as a parent, I mean, whenever my kids are sick, if you're sick, like to the point where like I've been sick this week and I've been working from home because I have RSV, I'll like, depending on the illness, I'll let them stay home. But if it's just like, oh my God, my stomach hurts, it's like, no, go to school. But when they do miss, I do try to take them to the doctor and like get them in as soon as possible. But I think that that does has to be more like that has to be told to parents because parents just think like, oh, okay, like a lot of parents don't take their kids to the doctor. They're like, oh, we'll just let it go this day, and hopefully tomorrow they'll wake up better. And us as parents, we feel like, okay, maybe it's okay just to excuse them. I've excused my kids just like that. So that has a lot to do with it. If I would have known that an excuse absent was different than like a doctor's note, then I would have been like, you know what, like, yes or yes, we're going to the doctor no matter what. Um, because that now makes a little bit more sense and it makes like it falls into place to a lot of things. But yeah, I think that should be more explained, at least with like just a quick like a memo, a quick memo, like, hey, just take note, parents, that, because a lot of parents don't know that. Just take note that if you, these are the, like, basically the consequences to the child's attendance, or, because yeah, with my kids, I'm like, you need to get your homework before you come. If you're gonna call in sick, just get your homework, email all your teachers, do this, do that. But as a parent, you don't know that that makes a big difference. So I think that would be good to send out something like that.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think as we've gone through this process at Elko High, we're finding the same thing. There's a lot of misunderstanding around how attendance is coded. But if I call and excuse them, it should be excused, and that doesn't count into that chronic absenteeism rate. Even I got a letter from my own child this week because he's now missed 5 days from sickness. And, so I likely mostly knew what it was. But I do think that is something that also adds to the chronic absenteeism rate, because when parents don't understand how it's calculated, then they are pulling their kids for longer times. Those prearranged, like when parents come and get a prearranged and hey, they're gonna go on vacation for a week, or sometimes we see a lot of vacationing, especially around the holidays, of 2 or 3 weeks that kids are being pulled out. They can prearrange it and get it approved, but it still counts for chronic absenteeism then. And so that student will still become a chronic absenteeism student. And so that's part of it too. So I think we need to start breaking out kind of the whys. We're seeing, here's our 22% of chronic absenteeism kids. What's their codes? Is it prearranged vacations? Is it parents just calling in sick? Those are data we get with those codes. And so I would be really interesting to see that type of data too, if Josh could pull that for us.
That is a great point, because politically, we're a conservative county. Many voters are like, none of your business why I'm pulling my kid. Big government, I don't care. And so if I call in a student, my student, it doesn't matter why. It's an excused absence, period. They're not seeing that, well, the state doesn't agree. And when that messaging goes out, we may need to be careful also, because if we're trying to get them to change their behavior and we say, well, the state counts it this way, they're going to say, well, tough on the state then, I don't care again. We've got to make sure that they understand how that impacts the district, and even those that are getting homeschooled can still help the district, because they're still they're still paying taxes. So thank you for homeschooling, because you're still paying us, but there's still that idea that if you truly are valuing the kids, well, then help us to figure out what's going on. But I think the coding is going to be good, because if one of my kids has a fever, but I know that it's, I'm not going to take him to the doctor for a fever. It's going to pass. Great, good, come back in. That's a missed absence that if I take him to the doctor, well, okay, great, now it's not. But yet that's taking up the doctor for a time that, that we know what's going on. And he's going to say, yep, he's got a virus, can't do anything with it. So take him home, rest and water. That's what we do. So there may also be an opportunity for us to start advocating for a change at the state level to say, hey, if our parents are calling in the people, we're going to be able to see chronic absenteeism if a parent doesn't give a darn and they're just calling in absences, versus parents that are calling in with an excuse. Yeah, anyways, yeah. So that may be something we can do too.
Yeah, honestly, I would like them to count them all the same, because I think it's a socioeconomic issue as well. And if we're really just counting whether or not a child is present and there, then whether or not they're excused by a doctor or a parent, it shouldn't really matter. So I think that is kind of on the state myself. And I think I could go down that spiral on lots of these issues, and I'm going to try not to, because I want to try to keep us like productive, because there are just kind of loopholes that are hard to deal with, and a lot of it is that. So I guess we've got the numbers. We know that some things have always remained the same with Elko County, and yet our numbers are continuing to decline regardless of that, similar kind of population. All of that stayed the same. And so what are we going to do about it? And I'm hearing all of the reports that we want from Josh, and so I can pull those so that we can continue to drill down and see if there are certain communities that might be impacted by this more. But honestly, it feels like a community issue, and not like to put blame on parents or blame on children or families or teachers, or the district for not doing more. It's kind of it's a whole community issue, and it's telling us something really important. I feel like this trend to people not wanting to come into school is a really important data point that we need to address and think about, and maybe have multiple strategies.
I absolutely agree, and I would say as far as next steps, I think, maybe a couple more times where we really do a full data dive, and we can use maybe some data protocols to look through that to get to that step of like, now what can we do? Because I would love to start seeing some action steps, which I think we already found one that we need today, of like, how do we create some information and sharing, infographic or something for parents that we can put out to help them understand just what the NRS is, what our role as a school is, how we code things, what their role as parents are. I know that was some of the communication we've been trying to do at Elko High School as well, and I think it's making a little bit of a difference just in understanding. And so I think that's a quick action step that we can do that would have some positive results in helping parents understand. So getting some of that information out and designing that.
I think that's great. I think we can definitely take action on that, and we can look at it first and kind of see, because I think that, as Matt said, we want to make sure that this doesn't provide the opposite kind of response. And I was curious, Heather, what do you see with the population of students that you work with? I'm really curious, because sometimes I think that your population might show up to school quite a bit, and then other times, so I'm curious, have you seen any trends of with the population that you work with absenteeism?
Not so much trends with the population, trends with the schools. Okay. Certain schools are much more inclined to work harder to keep my kids enrolled, engaged, and than others. And when I have that support, then the kid tends to do better. A lot of credit. My needs for my kids are typically credit recovery, right? And usually there's some behavior stuff going on as well. So that's kind of overall. It seems like school differences. I kind of like what you said. I looked at the two differences between Elko and Spring Creek, and that blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I don't, like you, I'm like, that's really interesting to me that we have such similar schools, similar geographic locations, and the chronic absenteeism rates were so different. Because I actually, for our kids, see them more engaged at Spring Creek than in Elko. So for my population, I would think my kids struggle more with attendance at Elko than they do Spring Creek. But overall, that's not supported in the data. So, interesting.
I don't know if it's not supported. I think it's just we're really pulling out a certain demographic that you're working with, and the data is showing us a larger demographic. So I think it's all good, like, information to consider, because you are working with a very, important demographic that we need to maybe have different kinds of needs for. Mhm. All right, everybody, we've circled around to 5 p.m., 5:08. Are there any final thoughts on looking at this data that's in front of us? We haven't, I know this was just kind of an overview, trying to explore what's available right at our fingertips. So I just wanted everybody to be able to see this because this is our major source of public data, and the state really is trying to show everybody what's going on. And I think sometimes people just don't know where to look. So hope this helped. And any other final thoughts about it?
Nothing on my end. I will take the time to review everything, and think of other things as a parent and like factors and all that, but nothing on my end. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, just a lot of data, and until we start getting into it, I think you brought up a good point at that final end, because no matter what reports we get from Josh, the county, the community is not able to see that. They are going to look here anyways, but it may be good to be able to say, okay, are at least the state reported trends mirroring what our internal trends are? Because if the trends are there, great. We'll argue with the numbers later, but at least the trends are there and we can go from there. But if the trends are all over the place, then we may need to just say, hey, here's our internal transparency portal, and here you go. We're not using the state data, and the Board of Trustees in some ways has said, we're not valuing this at the same level that others are. That's part of the portrait of a learner of, great, you guys are saying this is what we have to do, but we're not doing that for Elko County. So we know that we are going to take a hit on the state reporting in some measures because that's not a concentration for us. So we may need to also just do that within Elko County and say, hey, we're trying, but the data is not accurate. Or at least the data doesn't match what we have, and we don't know where they're pulling it from.
All right. Well, then let's wrap up our meeting. We have a moment for input from the public in item 3.01. Really quickly, item 3.01 is a final period for public comment. So if you do want to be a part of these meetings in the future, then if we do have any public out there, this is your time to speak. And seeing that we have none, we will move on to adjournment. 4.01, adjournment of the meeting. It's a non-action item. The next meeting for the Attendance Review Committee will be noticed and in accordance with the open meeting law. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 5:12 p.m. Thank you, everybody.